Hey, queens and kings, this is Sharrona Reaves, and you are listening to These Three Things Podcast, a podcast for women, where the conversation is about us, our relationships, and every aspect of our lives. This show is about unity, support, kindness, and keeping it 100% real.
So we can rise up, move, we've got the victory, burdens loose, these three things, higher, higher we go, don't stop, we're too close, free your mind, let's go, these three things.
Queens, kings, and good people, you are listening to These Three Things Podcast. I am Sharrona Reaves. The question on the table today is, what makes you happy? But before we get to the question, let's talk a little bit about Black women in therapy. Let's recap. Okay, so we just finished part 2 of Black women in therapy. I introduced my therapist, Leslie Fye, to These Three Things Podcast. Leslie will be appearing on more shows in the future of season 3 and in the future of These Three Things Podcast. I'm excited to have her on the show. Obviously, you know that Dr. Patricia will continue to be on more episodes of These Three Things Podcast. I know that she's super busy, and the fact that both of these women take time out of their super busy practices to be on These Three Things Podcast, as successful as they both are, just really warms my heart. It blesses the work that's being done on this show for those of us who need it. And it looks like from just the downloads of part 1 and part 2, there were a lot of people that were interested to learn more about Black women and therapy, and how to find a good therapist, how to know if the therapist that you're with can actually help you, how to vet a white therapist if you live somewhere where there's not a Black therapist for you to connect with and be able to work with and process whatever it is that you need to process. I think they gave great advice, great information, great direction, and hopefully nudged and urged some of you who really know you need to be in therapy, but are just afraid to hear some things about yourself or to hear things that haven't wanted to deal with because you don't want to process the pain of it all. I'm hoping that something that you heard in those episodes, if you listen to them, will urge you to get yourself in therapy and get healed and be whole. There is nothing like wholeness. There is nothing like being healed. There is nothing like letting go and understanding why you held on for so long. So I hope that those of you who need it will go get it and be free. So let's get into today's episode of What Makes You Happy. I will say this like we do in the Baptist church down here in the South. I won't be before you long, but I do want to talk about some things as in regards to what makes us happy. You know, do we talk about our happiness in general? How many conversations do we ever have as women about what really makes us happy? We talk about all of these external things in our lives that we enjoy doing, that include other people, that include other things. And yes, indeed, those are all things that make us happy. But just in the seat of your own soul, with no one else around, with no person removing everything and everybody, just you as an individual, what makes you happy? And I want for all of us just to take a second. Let's close our eyes and think for just one moment about you, just yourself as an individual, taking everything away, everything and everybody, and ask yourself, what makes you happy? Now listen, sis, if you driving, don't do it right now. Just wait till you get home, start the episode over, and sit down and close your eyes and ask yourself, what makes you happy? I had to ask myself that question, y'all, during COVID. If you've listened to the first introduction episode of These Three Things Podcast, I share with you how this podcast began, how in 2019, in the fall of 2019, for the first time in my life, I had moved without my children. Both were away in college. I'd started a new career, like a lot of new things had happened in my life. And it was the first time that I had ever lived somewhere where I was alone. And then less than 6 months after I had moved to this place, we go into a full-scale lockdown because of COVID-19. The question to me came up about what is real happiness? What is happiness? Like, what makes you happy? And I had to ask myself the question, what makes me happy? And to be honest with you, the things that I wrote down in the beginning of me asking myself that question, being in the house alone for so many days, just watching the news and all of the anxiety that news caused all of us back then, and just watching Black people just dying in herds, and being afraid to even go outside, and understanding that it is airborne before the press or our then president, whose name we will not mention, but we all know, would not even acknowledge the fact that it was airborne, who we later found out was withholding information from us about the virus. And we're all just at home alone. Many of us, not all of us, because some of us were with our families and loved ones, and some of us who have families, we quarantined with our families. But there was a period that I was at home alone. My children came home too, but there was a period where I was at home alone. And there were just so many things that were coming at me during that time. And my genuine happiness was one of them. And I want to talk about it. So when I closed my eyes and I asked myself what genuinely made me happy, just me, removing everything and everybody else, but just in me, what made me happy, I found that when I began to write things down, they all included other people. Like, my children make me happy. Like when I was in coaching and, I was in a program where we were successful and we worked hard, and those things made me happy. When I, landed a big recruit or got a yes from a big recruit that I was recruiting, and I know I'd put in my best effort and built great relationships with them and their families, that made me happy. Traveling and some of the experiences that I've had as a coach and being able to take my kids on vacations, those things made me happy. Being able to do things for other people because I could, those things made me happy. But as I was writing all those things down, y'all, I realized that most of my happiness was based on outside things. It wasn't based on internal things. And that began to raise a question within me about what makes you happy, Sharrona. Now, sometimes when we have to sit with ourselves, we realize that as women especially, and this is why I feel like this question is so important for us to ask ourselves, women, is because we are raised, especially Black women, and in the white community, if it's true for you, share that with me and email me at these3thingspodcast@gmail.com. these3thingspodcast@gmail.com, and tell me about how you're raised and what it's like for you as a woman. Because in the Black community, we are raised to look out for everybody else. We are raised to be concerned about everybody else's happiness but our own. As young kids, our parents' happiness and keeping them happy and making sure we're doing what we're supposed to do to keep the house clean, keep the dishes washed, keep our grades up, be home for curfew. We are raised to make our parents happy and proud of us. As we get older and we get into relationships, we are told, you better keep your man happy. If you won't do something, another woman will. We're raised with all of these things that tell us that our happiness is based on keeping someone else happy. Or we're raised to believe that our job is to keep other people happy. In our careers, we have to keep our bosses happy. I want to keep my boss happy so that I can advance in this company. I want to keep my coworkers happy so that they'll support me and not try to sabotage me behind my back or help me be successful in the workplace. For whatever reasons, like we look at all of these outside things of things that we have to do. Our children. Let's not forget our children. As Black women, we are totally raised, and I'm sure this is all women across the board. We're raised to make sure that our children are happy. We want to take them on vacations. We want to take them to Disneyland and Disney World and Six Flags. And it's all these extensions of keeping other people happy. But as we are being raised as women, how many people are asking us what makes us happy? So when you think about all of that, when do we have time to really think about our genuine happiness? And have you ever met a woman who's older, who has spent her whole life making other people happy, that's bitter, because she doesn't A, know what makes her happy, and B, she's pissed because all she's done her whole life was make everybody else happy. I think about that and I'm like, that's a subject that we as women need to think about. What makes you happy? Remove your job. Jobs don't last forever. It's a lot of people in COVID who don't have jobs anymore, or the career that you once had, you no longer have it. Children grow up, they move on. Divorce does happen. Marriages do break up. People do die and pass away. We learned that in COVID, as President Biden would consistently say, leaving empty seats at our tables. What makes you happy? When I had to ask myself that question and I was writing down all of the things that made me happy, and I looked at my list and I realized that my list consisted of all the things that I just mentioned that as women we're taught to do and how to keep everybody else happy, never really seeking to understand what brings us our own happiness. I realized that for so long I had been just letting life live me, thinking I was happy. And I guess sometimes I genuinely was, but for the most part, I was letting life live me. I wasn't really living my life. And I'm sure a lot of us do that as women. We do what we're told to do. We do what the right thing is to do. We do what the responsible thing is to do. Whether they make us happy or not, we'll choose to do what the right thing is to do. But I realized personally for me, I'm just letting life live me. I don't know if I'm really out here living life. And a lot of people who have looked at my life from the exterior have always thought that I've had this grand life. And don't get me wrong, I have had a pretty dope life. I'm not really sure that I've left much on the table if I was to leave here tomorrow. I'm pretty sure I snatched everything off that table that was due me, and maybe a few things left that I'm desiring to get to at this, phase of my life. But for the most part, I've grabbed everything on the table that belonged to Sharrona. So yes, I have had a pretty amazing life, but people assume that, because you travel for your job, because you visit all of these places and all these countries that I visited, and, they see you on television in your career and, doing well and working in, certain places and certain schools, and wow, but I'm just like everybody else, y'all. I'm just like everybody else. I'm doing the same thing that so many other women out here in this world are doing, trying to take care of my kids, trying to keep my boss happy, trying to help the program that I was with be successful, and out here not even really knowing what my own happiness is either. And y'all, let's just take a moment and think about this for just a second. We only get this one life. This is the only life that we will be given. And life is just so fragile. When we think about that, when I think about life and how fragile it is and how short it is, and I looked at my list of things that I had written down about what made me happy, and it was all about other people, nothing really at the seat of my soul that was just about me. I started to think about how you get this one life, Sharrona. This is all you got. And when you close your eyes, that's the end on this side. You've lived it. And whatever memories that you've left behind with people, that's what they'll hold on to. But for you, with the life that you've been given, not knowing the day that will be my last day, why are you not actively and intentionally doing things to make you happy? Now, let me say this, because I know there are some women who can't imagine doing anything just for themselves to make themselves happy, are thinking right now, well, I'm not going to neglect my responsibilities to my husband or to my children, trying to, go out here and get happiness for myself. That's not what I'm saying. Our responsibilities are just that, our responsibilities. But all of my responsibilities can't consume my whole life to the point that I can't be concerned about my own happiness as well. When we take time out to build up our happy place and do things that make us happy, our children in turn learn from us how to be happy. When all we do is actively keep everyone else happy, doing everything for every other person, the children are happy. My husband's happy. They're happy on my job. They're happy at church. They're happy where I go and spend my time volunteering. My friends are happy because I'm there for them at every turn. Whenever they call me, I'll pick up the phone. I'm there for them when they need me. What my children are learning is that all of these things are things that I'm supposed to be doing. And it all deals with keeping other people happy, not necessarily myself. And in turn, ladies, we have no clue what makes us happy. Now, if your happiness is built up in your kids and truly seeing your kids happy makes you happy, that's normal. We all feel that way. Who wants to see their children sad? If making your spouse happy makes you happy, that's wonderful, because who doesn't want to see their spouse happy? When you go to work, you want to have great working relationships with people. You want to be able to be comfortable with the people that you work with and be happy at your job. Those are all normal things. Some people truly are happy just by serving other people. They are seeing other people smile, being able to do something nice for someone else. If you're in line at Dunkin' Donuts and you decide to pay for the person's coffee behind you, that makes you happy because you know inside that you just brightened up someone's day unexpectedly. That's normal. Those are all normal things that, yes, make us happy. Absolutely make us happy. As a matter of fact, I was in a chain at Dunkin' Donuts about a week ago that the girl said it had started at 7 o'clock that morning. It was now like 10 o'clock. People were still paying for the car behind them's coffee. And I thought, how dope is that? I'd love to know how long that lasts before someone broke the chain. Little things like that are little small pockets of joy that happen in our lives that make us happy. Serving others is a beautiful way to be happy. I personally know that my son is happy when he makes other people happy. That gives him joy. It's like, you know what? That's pretty cool. That seeing, making other people laugh, giving other people joy makes him happy. Those are all normal things, y'all. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just us as women. Just us. What about us? And let's break down these things. There's 3 more things that I want to talk about that we always think are things that will make us happy. So let's just talk about them. 2, I know we all think about, but then 1, I know that we may or may not think about so much, but I do want to put it out there and give us some food for thought. Seasons in our lives. Different things make us happy in different seasons. What made me happy in my 20s doesn't make me happy in my 30s. Probably won't make me happy in my 40s, may or may not make me happy in my 50s, and quite possibly may not be anything that I'm interested in my 60s. We have to stay in touch with our own base to identify that we don't get stuck in things that we thought made us happy in our 20s and 30s that no longer serve us in our 40s and 50s, because we change, we evolve as people, as we grow, as we have to constantly, actively, intentionally be aware of what's making us happy as seasons in our lives change. Second, money. Can money make you happy? Let me just say this. For me, money can definitely make you comfortable. Money can definitely make life easier as far as the day-to-day cares of the world that we all deal with. Money can open doors for you. Money can take you places. But I have not found that money can make you happy. A lot of times we think, well, if I just, I get this promotion or I get this job and I can make this amount of money, or I'm making this amount, or I have this much money in my bank account, or when I retire, I'm going to retire with this much money. That's great. It's wonderful. That's beautiful. But does it make you happy? Will it make you happy? I haven't made millions of dollars, but I can tell you that with the money that I have made, which has been pretty good money, it's not made me happy. It's gotten me things. It's offered me, a few luxuries to enjoy, but it did not bring happiness. I don't believe that money can bring us happiness. And lastly, let's discuss people. Because a lot of us women, we try to find our happiness in people. We think, a lot of us, especially us single women out here, we think if I can just find me the right man, or depending on who you love, the right woman, no judgment here at These 3 Things podcast. If I can find the right person, if I can just get in the right relationship, That'll bring me happiness. But the reality and the truth of it is that A, there are no perfect relationships out here, y'all. And B, people are just people. People will let you down. There are no perfect people. So if your happiness is based on that relationship or that marriage or that husband, and there's nothing wrong with just loving your man or your woman, ain't nothing wrong with that. But if all of your happiness is based on them, that's a lot of responsibility for someone to have to take on every day for you to keep you happy, because your happiness is in them. We all are just individual people out here trying to make it, trying to live our best lives, trying to, understand who we are, trying to be better, trying to accomplish our own goals and things that are important to us while we love other people in our lives. But our happiness cannot be based on people. Seasons, money, people. Seasons change. Money's more than likely not going to make you happy. Comfortable? Yes. Happy? No. And people are not perfect. People will let you down. People will hurt you without even intending to. Our happiness cannot be caught up in those things either. If we're being honest, we can. It's a lot of people that need to free some folks right now of the responsibility of making you happy. That's not their job. Their job is to make themselves happy, because when they're happy, they'll be a happier person for you. A lot of the work that I am desiring to do, and I feel like I've been given to do, is to really challenge us as women in every area of our lives, in everything that affects us. And so many times we are brought up as women in this patriarchal society to be led to believe it is our job and responsibility to put everyone else before us, when in reality, that's not true. I think some of the work that I'm doing in this podcast and some of the work that this podcast intends to do is to help us think deeper about ourselves first, ladies, to help us figure out who we are at the seat of our soul, to help us to know ourselves and what truly makes us happy, and not be afraid to go out there and get that little slice of whatever it is that makes us happy. So ladies, I had to go back and redo my list. And I'm going to share with you some things that I wrote on my list that just make me happy, just me. And I think what you'll find when you make your list is that there aren't any really big grand things that make you happy. It's really small things. So here are the things that were on my list. Coffee. If you know me, you know this. Coffee makes me happy. It warms my soul. I love coffee. Coffee makes me happy. The beach, water, waves, sand, sun. The beach makes me happy. And then if I can add my 70s music while I'm on the beach, listening to all these songs that I used to listen to as a little girl riding on the school bus, all of my 70s easy listening, soft rock songs, that just gives me such joy. That makes me so happy to just sit on the beach and listen to 70s music. It makes me happy. Rocking chairs make me happy. Sitting in a good rocking chair and just rocking back and forth and just drinking a good cup of coffee in my rocking chair, that makes me happy. Whenever I go to Cracker Barrel and all of those rocking chairs, I'm like a kid. I don't know which one to sit in first. I just want to sit on it and rock. And if I can have a cup of coffee while I'm sitting in that rocking chair and rocking, that's two things that just really make me happy. So simple. And probably very country to some of you, depending on where you're listening to this episode from. Live music makes me happy. Concerts, fairs, jazz festivals. Live music just brings me joy. Watching people perform in their essence and talent, it just makes me happy. Flowers make me happy. I have always loved flowers. Flowers bring me joy. Flowers of all kinds, flowers of all colors. They make me happy. Good health makes me happy. Waking up every morning knowing that I'm in good health, that I'm taking care of myself, that my body is functioning well, it makes me happy. Cussing, y'all. Cussing makes me happy. I don't know why. I mean, don't judge me about it. It just makes me happy. A good cuss word placed in the right spot of a conversation, it just makes me happy. It makes me laugh. It makes me happy listening to other people cuss. Some of the funniest things in the world to me is listening to Samuel L. Jackson cuss about random things. It just makes me happy. A dirty martini with Kettle One vodka, extra filthy, makes me happy. If you've not tried one, do so. Great. It just brings me joy. With olives in it, brings me joy. Just makes me as happy as my coffee does. Opening up my Bible and reading a scripture that pertains to exactly what I needed to hear in that moment, or read in that moment, or feed my spirit in that moment, makes me happy. That makes me happy. That makes me feel like that God is just, yeah, I got you, girl. Read this and calm down. Read this. It's going to be okay. It makes me happy. Driving early in the morning when the sun is coming up, like when you're on a road trip and you start driving like when it's 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and the sun is starting to break and you're driving and you know it's the start of a new day, and it's like right before the sun comes up, that quiet where you feel like God is just roaming the world, getting ready for the day of whatever part of the world you're on, and then the sun is breaking. That gives me such joy and makes me happy. It makes me happy. Encouraging other people makes me happy. When people call me and ask me for advice about things or ask me what they should do, I find joy in encouraging them. That at the seat of my soul makes me happy. Those are a few things that make me happy. And when I look at my list, it's nothing major. It's nothing major. So when Mary J. Blige says all I really want is to be happy, those things that I just listed on my list, they make me happy. Now, are there other things that would make me happy? Or are there other things that have made me happy, like a big promotion in my career, or moving into a brand new home, or, getting the car that I always wanted to drive? Yes, those things make me happy too. But if I had to take all those things away, let's just say I don't have any of those things. Those are things that would make me happy that I just listed. So I challenge those of you who are listening as I'm coming to a close. I challenge you to take a moment and ask yourself, what makes you happy? And make a list that removes everything and everybody and focus just on you. And you'll find that the things that genuinely make you happy in the seat of your soul are really just small things. So make your list of things that just give you joy. And then with this one life that you've been given, do them often. So I leave that with you. That is your pod assignment. This is my first episode where I'm just coming before you and talking about what I'm talking about. This was given to me to talk with you women about what makes you happy. Find your own true happiness. Realize, women, that we've been raised a lot of years to make everybody else happy. Never really getting a chance to actively think about our own happiness. Make your list. I love to hear what some of you find that makes you happy. Share it with me. These 3 things podcast at gmail.com, or you can go on my website at www.these3-things.com. There is a contact page there. Send it to me on my contact page. I get both of them. I read my emails. I respond to everyone. And let me know what you find, ladies. Let me know if this subject resonated with you, if this was something that you really needed to hear for yourself, that you really needed to give thought to. And I'm so super interested to know what you found about yourself that makes you happy that you never really considered before. I look forward to hearing from all of you. This is Sharrona Reaves. You've been listening to These 3 Things podcast. What makes you happy? I'll be right back with these 3 things. If you like what you've been hearing today, I encourage you on whatever platform you are listening to this podcast on, go and leave a review and tell me what you loved about this episode. For almost a century, Scarrett Bennett Center's historic Gothic campus has been a choice location for dream weddings in Nashville. Consistently rated one of Music City's best places to get married by The Knot, Wedding Wire, and Toast of Nashville, Scarrett Bennett Center offers 3 timeless venues for your wedding: a 20-person elopement chapel, a 300-person wedding chapel, and a breathtaking garden. From rehearsal to reception, Scarrett Bennett Center is ready to help you create the intimate, historic wedding of your dreams. Visit our website at scarrettbennett.org/weddings for more information. Queens, kings, and good people, we're back. I am Sharrona Reaves, and it is time for these 3 things. Number 1, don't forget about you. In this episode, I talk about how as women, we are raised to be caretakers of others first. It's really an unspoken indoctrination into put yourself last 101. Those of us with free spirits realize early on what's happening, and we resist the notion that caring for ourselves first is wrong. But many of us, however, do as we are told, and we follow what we've seen and put everyone else's needs and happiness above our own. How generous of us to sacrifice so many years of our lives to others. Time we won't get back and time we aren't promised. We sacrifice so much of ourselves for others that when we finally feel like it's our time, air quotations, it takes us forever to figure out what our happiness even looks like. So ladies, I'm going to remind you again, don't forget to do your pod assignment and take a moment and write down all the things that make you happy, removing everyone and everything, and start actively and intentionally putting your happiness on your great big list of things to do. Being a great mom, wife, friend, and employee are all honorable. Just don't forget about you. Number 2, protect your happiness. Now that you've completed your pod assignment and you've written down all the things that make you happy and bring you joy, understand that those whose happiness you've consistently placed above yours may not take you putting yourself first so easy. And that's okay. You doing more things to make you happy may require a conversation or two. You may have to apologize to your children about putting their needs before you far too often. Your husband may need to be reminded that a happy wife is truly a happy life. Your friends may have to work out their own issues or bend another friend's ear on occasion. But remember, all of these people love you, and when they see you more happy, they will be too. As mama bear to your children, your pets, or your relationships, you do a great job of protecting all the above from any unnecessary mess. Keep that same energy and protect your happiness. Number 3, you'll need to remember. So queens, we've written our list. We're protecting our happy. But as I mentioned in the episode, seasons will change. So there may be times where you'll have to update your list of happy. The kids will grow up. That favorite pet may pass away. You may lose someone in your family to death. Unfortunate things happen like divorce. While I'm hoping that none of these things happen to you, and that all of your days are happy, the reality is that seasons will change. So as those seasons change, don't forget to go back and update your list of happy. Make changes, make adjustments, because ladies, seasons will change, and you'll need to remember. That's it for this episode, These Three Things podcast. I am Sharrona Reaves. What makes you happy? I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I will see you next Tuesday with a new episode of These Three Things podcast. Have a safe and happy 4th of July.